Hi. I thought I'd tell you another story about my grandfather, Edwin Harmon. And, the paper water balloons that I told you about a couple days ago. Well, shortly after that, they moved to the edge of a town in Lancaster County. And there, they lived in kind of a rural area. And the boys had a lot of work to do to keep them out of mischief. But they still occasionally did have some times where they did have some recreation time. Well, one of those times, he and some of the neighborhood boys decided that they would go swimming in the river. And so he asked his mother, and his mother said, "Okay, you can go, but I'm really busy today. You'll need to watch your little brother," who was 4 years younger than he was. And Ed thought, "Oh, must I? I don't really want to." She said, "Well, that's the only way that you can go, is if you watch Harold." So he went ahead and went to the river with Harold and the boys. And as soon as they got there, he told Harold, "You stay right here on the bank of the river. Do not go into the water above your ankles. And you stay. I want to have some fun. I don't want to have to watch you." So Harold said, "Okay." And he played with some sticks, and he caught a few frogs and some turtles, things that you do around the river when you're a kid. But he could see his brother and his brother's friends all whooping and hollering and enjoying such a wonderful day in the water, and it was getting pretty hot, and he wanted to get into the water, but he couldn't go above his ankles. And so he was real good for a long time. But then he looked out there, and the boys were dunking each other and splashing each other and having a great old time. And he thought, well, it doesn't seem too terribly deep. I think maybe I can go out and I can play too. And so he started out to where the boys were. Now, about this time, Ed and Harold's mother, as she was doing dishes, she began to get a feeling that something might not be exactly right. And it was a worry that was kind of toying in the back of her mind. And she's going, "I think I'll go check on the boys." So she dried her hands on her apron, and she grabbed her shawl, and out she went to the river. And during the time while she was walking down to the river, and Harold was going toward the boys, he suddenly got into a drop-off, and down inside the water he went. and no amount of flailing around seemed to help. He couldn't breathe. And before long, he didn't remember anything until he was on the bank and being rolled around and pushed on and everything, trying to get him to breathe again. Well, what had happened was there was a dog, a black lab, that was watching the boys. And he saw Harold go under. And he raced down to the water, and he plunged in, and he grabbed Harold in his teeth and pulled him up to the bank of the river. Now the boys, by this time, noticed the dog and noticed a very lifeless little boy. And Harold was not even breathing. And Ed thought, oh no, I was supposed to watch him, and now he's dead. And he was just so scared. And so he and the boys were all coming out of the water, and they started rolling Harold around and trying to push on him and everything. They didn't know CPR back then, because this, remember, was in the 1800s. So they were doing their best to try to get some life into the boy. And about that time, Ed's mother came. And she was just, her heart about stopped, because she had other children that had died when they were younger than Harold, and she didn't want to lose another baby. And so she did the best she could to try to get the water out of him. And pretty soon, he started coughing and sputtering and breathing as best as you could with a lung full of water. And then he started to cry. And that was the most welcome sound to all those boys and to the mother, to hear that cry from that little boy. And then she said, "Did you boys get him up on the bank? I thought I saw you just coming out of the water." And they said, "No, there was a black dog that had seen him and grabbed him and brought him up." And then they saw the dog, and so they petted the dog and told the dog what a good boy he was. And the dog was very happy to have all the attention and loving. And nobody knew where the dog had come from, and they figured that it was a stray. And I hope that somebody adopted that dog. But I don't know that, because my grandfather, when he told the story, never said one way or the other. But I always hoped that somebody had taken that dog home and given him a good meal and kept him for their very own. And Harold grew up and got married and became a merchant marine. And that's a whole nother story.